Howdy, everybody, and welcome to NFL Central. Today, I didn't think I was going to have to do another one of these videos, but the situation has presented itself. Yeah, yeah, it's frustrating, but we're going to have to do another case for Baker Mayfield since people just don't really seem to get it. I thought that people could use common sense, apparently not. So, let's get into it. I'm going to go through a lot of things today with Baker. I'm going to speak on the Odell situation briefly. I've already put that in the previous video, so you can watch that if you want. I'm not going to go into as much detail. I'm going to be talking about his injuries. I'm going to talk about the Kareem Hunt dad thing that just happened. I'm going to talk about his previous games. I'm going to go through each game he's played this year. I'm also going to talk about the rest of the season for the Browns and what I think could happen. And then I'm going to talk about his outlook in the future, depending on what happens this year with the Browns or maybe somewhere else. But we'll get to that. But let's talk about his season so far. I'm going to start with the most recent games. I'm going to go back all the way down to Week 1. But let's start with the game that's fresh in all of our minds, which was the Browns at the Ravens. The Cleveland Browns lost this game 16-10. If you think this game was Baker Mayfield's fault, you didn't watch or you were intentionally trying to piss off some Browns fan or something. You know that it wasn't his fault. If you watch that game, you know they had drop after drop. I'll show some right here. But if you watched, you know the amount of drops they had, especially on that last drive, the last chance the Browns had to win that game. What happened? The left side of the line just let a guy through immediately. Baker actually got out of the sack and threw the ball away. Wow, that was really good. Maybe that's what a good quarterback does. I don't know. Then the next play, drop ball right in the guy's hands. Fit it into a tight window too. Guy wasn't open and still hit him in his hands. Dropped it. Next play, another drop. So now you're on fourth. So it was a horrible situation to be put in, and there was not much you could do. We had drops after drops after drops. Nothing you can do about that. Despite all that, Baker went 18 for 37, one touchdown, 0 picks, 247 yards. Despite a floundering offensive line and drops all the time. Like Donovan Peoples-Jones couldn't catch a cold, let alone a football last night. Jarvis Landry, off and on. But speaking of Jarvis Landry, I don't know what that play call was where they had him at QB after Baker Mayfield just had a 47-yard completion. And then they let Jarvis Landry try to throw the ball, and then he got strip sacked. Well, you see what happens. Horrible play calling. I can talk about Kevin Stefanski all day. Colin Cowherd can talk all he wants about how Browns fans are complaining about Kevin Stefanski now. Justifiably so. He has not been a good play caller this year. He has not been nearly as good of a coach this year as he was last year. That's just a fact. But yeah, I don't know what the play calling was. Baker Mayfield still managed to bring it in close. I don't know. Nick Chubb never really showed up last night either, which they really needed him. But, oh well. You go the week before, week 11, the Lions at the Browns. Now, Baker Mayfield did not have a good game. 15 for 29, one touchdown, 2 picks, 176 yards. That's not a great game. But let's go into context, because context matters. He had a partially broken collarbone, a torn labrum. Both of his knees were messed up. His ankle and his foot were hurt. As a quarterback, you throw with your entire body. When your entire body is hurt, like his is, it makes it difficult to throw the football, especially in Cleveland in the rain that was going on there. It was a tough game to throw in, and he still made a lot of elite throws. He had the first interception he had was bad. The second one was a really good play by the defender. It's actually not as bad as the stat line shows. And again, if you people who hate Baker Mayfield would watch the game tape, you would know that, but you don't. You don't. You only like the narratives. And see, I'm hoping that Cleveland Browns, like their front office, actually look at the film and see what they actually have in Baker Mayfield instead of listening to the stupid fans and the stupid analysts like Colin Cowherd who talk out of their ass all the time. It's just frustrating. So, and they still won. 13-10, they won. Now, I will criticize Baker Mayfield on one thing. I didn't like his comment where he said, where the interviewer in the media day asked him, what do you make of the Browns fans booing you? And he responded, those are probably the same fans that won't be quiet while we're on offense. I don't like that comment. Never call it the fans. However, he's not wrong. When you're a fan in an NFL game, just for any of you guys, if you're a fan of the team that's playing on offense, be quiet. That's how it goes. You want to be quiet so your offense can call a play and they don't have all of that distraction. That is what's supposed to happen. So he's not wrong. I just wish he wouldn't have said it. But I also understand his frustration. Browns fans have a really short memory. They have a really short memory. And I'll get into that in a little bit about what the problem with the Browns fans right now. But I'll get into that in a second. Game before that, Browns at Patriots. Baker was 11 for 21, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 73 yards. His 1 interception was not good. He didn't play the whole game because he got the injury in his knee that he had to play through in the Lions game. Again, taking into account context. Watch the film. He didn't play bad. He just didn't. He scored on the first drive. He had the Browns going, and the O-line, because Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt were out, the O-line needed to pass block that game. That was the game that they needed to pass block well, and that was their worst pass blocking game they've had all season. The one where they needed good pass blocking is the worst pass blocking game they had all season. I don't know what to say. It's very frustrating, and he still didn't have a bad game. And because of the lack of pass blocking, an already injured quarterback got more injured, and he wasn't able to finish the game, and of course the Browns lost 45-7. And you actually have Browns fans calling for Case Keenum to be starting, and he played even worse than Baker Mayfield did. Baker Mayfield at like 50%, maybe even less, with a broken collarbone, torn labrum, injured knees, injured foot, is still better than their backup. Like, there's 31 other starting quarterbacks who wouldn't play through the injuries that he has right now. Browns fans should be grateful, and they're not. And I don't get it, because they're a poverty homeless franchise without Baker. They always have been. And I'll get into that more. But I just have to keep coming back to it because it's true. You are nothing, and I mean nothing, without your quarterback, Baker Mayfield. That's just a fact. You weren't anything before, and when he's gone, you will be nothing after. That's a fact. Game before that, Browns at Bengals. Baker went 14 for 21, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 218 yards. That was the game right after OBJ left. Imagine that, right? Yeah, OBJ doesn't play in that game, and he is the number 1 graded quarterback by PFF. 2 touchdowns, no picks. 66.7 completion percentage. It was a great game. The Bengals were on a hot streak, and they won 41. They put up 41 points in the Bengals. I don't remember how much the Bengals scored. They still killed them. There's not much to say about the game. That was before the knees and the ankles. He still had a torn labrum and a partially broken collarbone, and he still played that well against a really hot Bengals team, who are doing well right now, mind you. Game before that, Steelers at Browns. Baker Mayfield went 20 for 31, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 225 yards. They couldn't really find the end zone. They lost 15-10. The running game never really got going despite the stats on there. There was just nothing consistent about that game. Baker Mayfield was fired up. The team was not responding because they're all injured too. And I wish they had the same drive as he did, but they don't. They don't. And it's hard when your coach is not trying to get the team to respond. And so if you're not listening to your quarterback, who is hyped up, who's injured as hell, and you not listening to your coach, who's not really doing anything, then there's not much you can do. The Browns still have a chance to make the playoffs. The thing is their season's not over, and I don't know what this team is doing. But of course, all the blame is falling on Baker Mayfield because Odell is a bum. With his father and all that stuff, he's a bum. And that is what's going on right now. OBJ, if it was really any other quarterback, would have ruined their career. I think Baker Mayfield's going to be able to dig out of this hole that has been dug for him, not by himself, but by OBJ and a terrible organization. But he's one of the few people that I think could dig out of this hole. OBJ is a cancer, and that's proof of it right there. He didn't even try during this game. He was barely in. Jarvis Landry couldn't catch anything. It was horrible. It was horrible to watch. Week before, Cardinals at Browns. Baker Mayfield went 19 for 28, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 234 yards. And when your quarterback puts up a good performance like that, you expect to win. And yet the Browns still sold and they lost the game. They actually got killed because nobody else on the team stepped up. Nobody else could do anything. They can't support their injured quarterback who is still putting up really good performances and yet the team is selling, and yet Baker Mayfield's the one who's getting the blame, even though he's the only one this year who has been consistently good for this team. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It makes me wish he would go somewhere else, but I've seen what happens when somebody goes somewhere else. When you get that perception that it was your fault in a franchise, things like Jared Goff happen, which we can watch that right now, and I could make a whole nother video about that, but Jared Goff was not the problems with the Rams. Obviously, look, Matthew Stafford has thrown 3 pick sixes in the last 3 games. They've lost 3 games. Goff wasn't the problem. It's the Rams organization. Sean McVay has predictable play calling. I've been saying that for 2 years now. Nobody will listen because it's not the mainstream narrative, but it's true. And if people and stupid casual fans would watch the film, they would know that instead of talking out of their ass. And that's the same thing that's happening here. So I really hope he doesn't leave because he might end up on a place like the Lions, like Jared Goff did. But also, the Browns don't deserve this guy. They don't. They don't deserve him at all. So I don't really know what I'm hoping for here. I'm just hoping that he plays great after this and keeps doing his thing and maybe people wake up. But that's naive to think. So I don't really know what I want to happen. But again, at the end of this video, I'm going to go and do a lot of scenarios that could happen. But let's go to the game before that. Browns at Chargers. They lost again. But the quarterback, Baker Mayfield, 23 for 32, with a torn labrum and a broken collarbone, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 305 yards, and they still lost. They put up 40 points and lost. Yeah, the defense sold. They had 8 of their 11 starters on defense hurt. The line couldn't block for shit. The running backs couldn't run. I don't know what to say. Despite all the stats, there's nothing consistent about this team except for Baker Mayfield, and in the last 2 minutes, the coach wouldn't put the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands. The run was not being consistent, and yet they still run it. You could say that's because the coach doesn't trust him, and if that was the case, that's stupid, because Baker Mayfield played great, put up a 300-yard game, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, with a torn labrum and a partially broken collarbone. I don't know what else you expect from your quarterback. I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going. Browns at Vikings, they won this game, and Baker Mayfield went 15 for 33, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 155 yards. Not his best game. He was just coming off the injury. His shoulder injury happened 2 weeks before this. He's still getting used to the injury, and the Vikings are a good team, and they still won, so I don't really want to hear it. Week 3, Bears at Browns, 19 for 31, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 246 yards, the game right after he tore his labrum. Bears are a terrible team, and he did what he was supposed to do. They won the game. Week 2, Texans at the Browns. This was the game that Baker Mayfield tore his labrum and partially broke his collarbone. He went 19 for 21. Only 2 incompletions. One of those incompletions was an interception. It was his fault. It happens. Quarterbacks throw interceptions. Despite all this, he's only thrown 6 interceptions on the year. He still threw for a touchdown and 213 yards. It was a really good game. Again, only 2 incompletions. Do you really think a mid quarterback is going to do that? I'm sick of hearing these narratives because they're just not true. Watch the film. Watch the film. He's a top 10 QB, especially when healthy. Watch the film. Week 1. Now, despite the stat line, he actually had a really good game. He made a lot of elite throws, a lot of big-time throws against the Chiefs. He was 21 for 28, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, 321 yards. The reason he didn't have a passing touchdown is because Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt ran in the ball when they got in the red zone. But Baker Mayfield is the person who got them into the red zone. So the stats are misleading. He still threw for over 300 yards, and that one pick that everybody likes to throw on him for not being clutch was not his fault. When you are falling forward, when your feet get hit and you're falling forward and you're trying to throw the ball out of bounds, it's going to lose velocity when somebody hits your feet because you throw with your entire body. Imagine that. And so it didn't go as far as he wanted it to, and it got an interception and they lost the game. Not his fault. The line needs to block better. Anyway, that's all the games he's played. This season is not on him. They're still 6-6. He still has them in position to win this division despite all of the injuries and all of the hate coming from the fans and the media, and he still has them in a position to possibly win this division. Still, they're probably not going to win the division, but they're still very much in the playoff hunt. Now I'm going to talk about the Odell situation real quick. I have gone through this before. I don't really want to go through it again, but I'm going to just do a quick thing. Baker Mayfield has undeniably been better without Odell. People who say that Odell was not the problem are stupid. They're wrong, or they're just not paying attention, or they're just feeding you narratives that the media has given them. So they're just reciting talking points like a liberal. So let's start with his rookie season. In 2018, Baker Mayfield had the best rookie season of all time, arguably. Not arguably a top 3 rookie season of all time for a quarterback. He threw 27 touchdowns, which was the record at the time, and 14 interceptions. This 27 touchdowns, which again was a record at the time for a rookie QB, was on a team that had gone 0-16 the year before with coaches Hugh Jackson and Greg Williams, who are historically bad at their job when they're head coaches, or even as their coordinator jobs. Greg Williams got fired from the Jets last year for playing a cover 0 on a Hail Mary play. They're not good. They're not good coaches. And he still managed to lead the Browns to a 7-8-1 record and break the rookie passing touchdown record. That's without OBJ. The next year they get OBJ. And one of the worst coaches I've ever seen in the modern era, Freddie Kitchens, who couldn't call a play to save his life. That was a competent play call. He just could not do it. They still went 6-10, mostly due to Baker Mayfield. He threw 22 touchdowns and 21 interceptions, though, that year. That's with OBJ, because there was a lot of pressure to force the ball to OBJ, because OBJ is a prima donna and has to get the ball at least 10 times during a game, even though he'll drop most of it or run the wrong route most of the time. But whatever. He's a diva. It put a lot of unnecessary pressure on Baker Mayfield, who is a second-year player who has never, up until this point, had a competent head coach. That's a lot of stuff to put on his plate, especially with a homeless organization like the Cleveland Browns. So, but that is with OBJ. So a lot of things happen, especially, again, with Freddie Kitchens. He got fired after that year, and then they were going to try to make the OBJ experiment work with Kevin Stefanski, their new head coach they hired in the 2020 offseason. Now, with OBJ, that year, they played 7 games together that year before OBJ tore his ACL. Really 6 games in like a first quarter of this week 7. In those first 7 games, he threw 10 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And they were 4-2. That's not horrible, but it's not great. And it didn't really look good for Baker Mayfield throwing 10 touchdowns and 6 picks. That's not a great stat line you want to have. In that game against the Bengals week 7, Baker Mayfield starts off 1 completion out of 5 attempts, 1 interception for a pick 6. On that pick 6 play, Odell Beckham Jr. tears his ACL. Then Baker Mayfield proceeds to go 21 for 22, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in that game post Odell's injury, and wins the game on a game-winning touchdown pass. And guess what that incompletion was? It was a spiked ball. If you're going to tell me that OBJ is not the problem, you're stupid. Okay? Then you can look at the rest of the season. He threw 16 touchdowns, only 1 interception, the rest of the season without OBJ. Led the Browns to a playoff game, the Cleveland Browns, to a playoff game. I don't think new Browns fans completely understand how crazy that is that the Browns got to the playoffs. It doesn't happen often, or at least it didn't used to. The Browns didn't used to be good before Baker Mayfield. Now, since Baker Mayfield has got there, they've always been contending for a playoff spot at least. And then Baker Mayfield won a playoff game that year against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the arch rival who has been a historically good franchise with 6 Super Bowl rings. He beat them without his head coach, because his head coach had COVID. So there was no head coach, so he had to be the leader of that team, and they won. They killed him, actually. They killed the Steelers. Baker Mayfield led the Browns to a playoff win. Again, if you're a new Browns fan, that's very rare. They are a terrible franchise, and he led them to a playoff win against the Steelers. Once he's gone, that type of thing will never happen. Enjoy it, because it will never happen to you guys again, because you're a terrible franchise. And he's the only reason that people even care about the Browns right now. He started it. He turned them around. No other QB would have done that. Maybe Tom Brady. That's it. It just takes a certain type of confidence to do that. Anyway. And then this year, OBJ was on the team. He hasn't had the best year. He's also been dealing with an injury. But guess what? The first game that Odell hadn't played because of the whole thing with his dad posting the 11-minute video of Baker missing Odell, even though Odell most of the time in that video was running wrong routes or dropped the ball. Well, I'll get into that in a second. But the first game without OBJ that year, Odell, he's not OBJ anymore. He's bad. He was the number 1 ranked QB, like I said, by PFF. First game without Odell. 2 touchdowns, no picks. 14 for 21. I don't know what else to say. And he's still playing well, especially considering context, which I know that you casual fans don't really like to take into account, but context matters. He's still playing well. He's playing better without OBJ. OBJ was the problem. OBJ is a cancer to a team. He might have ruined his career. I don't know. We'll see. But, oh yeah, one more thing. The whole Baker Mayfield missing OBJ thing, you have to build trust with your wide receiver as a quarterback. And you know what trust is built on? Timing in the NFL. You have to have timing and trust with your receiver. And OBJ never built that with Baker Mayfield. He usually ran his wrong route. That's been reported in the Browns organization. He ran the wrong route a lot. OBJ constantly drops really, really easy passes. He did that in New York. If you don't trust your receiver to catch the ball, he's not going to get the ball. That's how it is. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but OBJ was the problem because he never built trust with Baker Mayfield. He never built timing with him. It's on OBJ. And I'm sick of people like Shannon Sharp acting like OBJ is innocent in all this, except for the fact that OBJ is a prima donna diva who never, ever was good for the Cleveland Browns because he never built timing with this quarterback. The franchise. OBJ was definitely the problem, and he'll be the problem in LA. He's not good anymore. And when you have a personality like that, and you're not good, it's not going to go well. All right, let's talk about Kareem's Hunt father. I barely read it. I don't care. If he's going to call up for Baker Mayfield too, then that sucks, because that's probably how the locker room feels about it. Because if 2 dads have come forward, that's not good. Baker Mayfield needs to play even better than he already is with a team that's not supporting him well. But it doesn't really matter. I think Baker Mayfield will be fine. It's just a whole nother thing. Kareem Hunt's father needs to worry about his son kicking women. Give me a break. Your son's... Anyway, doesn't matter. I don't think he was saying it the way that OBJ's father was. OBJ's father posted an 11-minute video about it. It was just some Facebook or Instagram post by Kareem Hunt's father. He still needs to worry about his kid first. It's stupid. Anyway, I'm going to move on about that. There's not much to talk about there. But let's talk about the outlook for Baker Mayfield's 2021 season. They're going into a bye right now after that loss to Baltimore, which will give him time to heal up a little bit more, maybe feel better and more comfortable even in the next game. And they will be playing the Ravens after their bye. I think they'll beat the Ravens this time. They got pretty close. Everybody on the Browns will be a little bit more healthy this time. Hopefully their offensive line will be able to help out Baker Mayfield a little bit more in the passing situations. Hopefully Nick Chubb will be able to hit a better rhythm. Hopefully Jarvis Landry will be able to catch. Hopefully Donovan Peoples-Jones will be able to catch. Hopefully this bye week will be able to build confidence. Last year the bye week really helped the Browns. Hopefully it'll do the same thing this year. I think it will. Maybe they'll be able to clear some stuff up in the locker room. God knows they need that. But my predictions for the Ravens game is that he'll throw 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 224 yards, and they'll win the game. Week 15, they play the Raiders. The Raiders are an overrated team, and they get worse as they go along in the season. That's just what they've done. And they've also had a lot of turmoil in their organization, obviously. I know you guys know about that, I'm sure, with Gruden and Ruggs and stuff. So I think Baker Mayfield will throw 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 198 yards, and win this game. I think this will be more of a running game for the Browns, but who knows. Week 16 for the Packers is probably the biggest game of their season after this. They've got to, obviously they got to beat Baltimore at least once or their season really is over. But the Packers, because I think they will beat the Ravens, but the Packers game, I think they can win it. I really do. But everybody's got to step up more than they have this entire year for the Browns. Everybody's got to step up. So I have Baker Mayfield throwing 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 276 yards, and getting the win here. They could very well lose it, depending on what Browns team shows up. If the running backs don't show up, if one group doesn't show up, then it's a loss. because the Browns' confidence isn't as a high right now. So they're going to need a lot of help. They're going to need everybody on their game and focused. And I know Baker will be, and I know probably Nick Chubb will be, and that's about all I can count on right now. But if they can get everybody focused, I think they can win this game. Hopefully Baker Mayfield, it'll be, well after the bye, he'll be a little bit more healthy. So I think he'll throw 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 276 yards, and I think he'll win the game. Week 17 versus the Steelers. It's at Pittsburgh. I don't think they're going to lose this game either. I think he'll throw 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 208 yards in the win. I think Pittsburgh is getting worse. Big Ben is looking old. I think they can very well win this game. Again, they got to show up, but I think they'll win this game, which will put them in a good spot for the division. And then week 18 at the Bengals. Bengals is the best team that Baker Mayfield plays his best against the Bengals, so they'll win this game. 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, 284 yards, and a win. And then I think that'll be enough to get them in the playoffs. If they lose to the Packers, though, then it'll be hard to get in the playoffs. They'll need a little bit of luck, but they still can. But if they're going to lose one, they can only afford 1 loss. And if they're going to lose one, it should be to the Packers. They can't lose to a division opponent, and they've got the Ravens, Steelers, and Bengals left to play one more time. So we'll see what happens. I think they're going to win out. I think Baker Mayfield will step up his game, especially after he gets more healthy after the bye. He's got a lot of doubters right now, and that's when he plays his best. So we'll see what happens. But I think he'll do well. He already has been doing well. Contrary to popular opinion, watch the film. So let's finish off with his career outlook. We got a few scenarios here that I'll talk about. Now, let's just start out with the best one, I guess. If the Browns make the playoffs, I think they'll pay him and keep him around. I think after this, with the public perception and maybe the question marks about it, like the question marks that there shouldn't be any question marks. They should pay him. But the question marks they have, I think he'll probably get around probably $25 to $29 million. He won't get a $30 to $40 million deal, which is probably better because they'll be able to get him better players around him if they don't pay him as much. And I think Baker Mayfield seems more like a guy who cares about winning than the money. So I think that'll be a good thing. So if they make the playoffs, they'll pay him probably $25 to $29 million, probably a 3 to 4 year deal. If they give him a 2-year deal, then that's not enough. That's a lack of confidence from the organization into him, and he should go into free agency if they try to give him a 2-year or less deal. Because somebody will give him a 4-year deal. But if they make the playoffs, I think he stays. I think Cleveland will sign him to a $25 to $29 million deal, 3 or 4 years. Then if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, I still think Cleveland might keep him because I think Kevin Stefanski likes him. When he was asked by the media this week if he would bench Baker Mayfield, he was kind of appalled at that question. He was like, why would we do that? And exactly, why would you do that? He's better than Case Keenum. He's a top 10 QB in the league, especially healthy. Just, why would you bench him? He's one of the only bright spots about your team right now. So I still think they'd probably re-sign him, but if they miss the playoffs, then they're going to consider other options. And if somebody like Aaron Rodgers, somebody comes available, then they might go after him. But I still think Baker Mayfield stays in Cleveland. Regardless, I think he'll stay in Cleveland at least 1 more year. However, let's just consider the possibility real quick that he leaves, that Cleveland kind of cuts bait and like, we don't want you back next year. A fresh start could be good if he goes to a team that's not incompetent like the Browns were. He hasn't really had consistent coaching because Kevin Stefanski has gotten worse this year. He has. His play calling has gotten a lot worse. You could see that in the last game with Jarvis Landry. After Baker Mayfield threw a 47-yard completion, they put Jarvis Landry in at QB for one of their little trick plays, and he got strip sacked. So stupid. That's just indicative of how the whole year has been. He's not been calling plays as well this year as he did last year. But if he leaves Cleveland, I think good fits for him. I'll go into the possibilities after this, but I'll say the good fits for him are Green Bay. If Aaron Rodgers leaves, I think Green Bay will actually be a really good spot. Maybe if the Browns get Aaron Rodgers and Baker Mayfield goes to the Browns, maybe they could even trade. Who knows? But that would be a really good spot. Packers would win the NFC North. I mean, the Packers are a really, really competent organization. Baker's never had that. So, I think it would be really cool if he went to the Packers, a competent organization with a lot of support. They draft well. It would be a good thing. Also thought about Washington. He would be good with Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera would like a quarterback like Baker Mayfield. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot anymore. So it would be good. He just has to manage the game. Hopefully the defense for Washington would get better. And Baker Mayfield is a top 10 QB. Ron Rivera has never really had that except for Cam in 2015, but that was a fluke. So that would actually be really good for Washington, and I think that within 2 years they could be contenders. If the Giants get rid of Daniel Jones and don't want to draft somebody from this QB class, then that would actually be a good spot. That Baker would probably love the New York media. And hopefully they fire Gettleman and maybe start building around him. That could be a good fit. That's not my ideal one, but it could be a good fit. Carolina's another one that maybe it's kind of meh. We don't know what we have in Matt Rule yet. Joe Brady is a good OC. If you had a competent QB, that would actually be a good spot. So possibly, it could possibly be a good spot for Baker Mayfield in Carolina, but it's not one of my top choices. My top choice there, though, would be New Orleans. Now, I think that New Orleans is going to roll with Jameis one more year, but if they don't, and Baker Mayfield comes available, one of Baker Mayfield's pro comps was Drew Brees, and I think Baker Mayfield could thrive with Sean Payton and the Saints, who are now a competent organization. Throwing to Michael Thomas, having Alvin Kamara, it would actually be perfect. Like, if he leaves Cleveland, I would pray that he goes to New Orleans because all of our problems would be solved. Everybody would realize that he's a top 10 quarterback with top 5 potential. But that's wishful thinking. But let's hope it happens. Let's hope it happens. That's what I really hope happens. Either that or he stays in Cleveland and proves everybody wrong. But really hoping for that. Pittsburgh wouldn't be bad either, but I don't think that would be difficult. I think that's the last thing the Browns want to happen. But I can tell you this, if Baker Mayfield went to Pittsburgh, the Browns would never beat Pittsburgh. It would be hilarious. I would enjoy it so much. But Denver's another one. I could see it. They got a lot of good weapons, a pretty good defense. Teddy Bridgewater is pretty mediocre. He's not bad. Baker Mayfield will be a big step up for them, and I could see that happening. That would be a good idea. Tennessee, maybe. Baker paired with Derrick Henry would be good. I don't know if they're sold on Ryan Tannehill or not. Ryan Tannehill had a really rocky year without Arthur Smith, so I don't know if they are going to look at other options, but if they do and Baker Mayfield's available, I could see that happening as well. So those are the good fits, or at least ones that I could see. Now, I really hope he doesn't end up in a place like the Lions or like not Jacksonville, but Houston. It would be horrible if he went there. That's why I'm really hoping they don't trade him. So I don't think that'll happen, but it happened to Goff. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen because that could really be the end. He could still turn around another franchise, but they would be less patient than Cleveland, and Cleveland hasn't really been patient anyway, and they've put bad coaches in front of him, and David Culley's a bad coach in Houston, and Dan Campbell, bad coach in Detroit. So I hope it doesn't end up like that. I don't think it will, but it's a possibility, so let's hope that doesn't happen. But that's the career outlook. I think the Browns make the playoffs, so I think he'll be fine. I think he'll stay in Cleveland, which could be a good or bad thing. But if anybody can turn them around, he can. But let's hope for New Orleans, right? So that's the episode. I didn't want to make another one of those, like I said at the beginning, but I felt like it was needed. If you guys watch the end, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Even if you disagree with me, I'd love to see it in the comments. And I appreciate all you guys who watched, and I will see you soon, and go Baker.